where your body is your temple, and treating it likewise. Um, there is so just to quickly point out that when people might just see me as being insensitive, and I'm sure, you in order to speak your mind, someone is going to think everything of you somewhere. So it's not a complaint. It's not nothing. It's not a problem. But I think that for people to see that, they haven't seen the whole picture of who I am and where that's coming from, and therefore they'll see it as abrasive because it's not the same current or if you're looking at wood grain, it's not the same grain. It's going against the grain. That's where that term came from, right? But going against the grain, against your grain, may not mean that it's wrong or insensitive or otherwise. So that's why I wanted to provide people with the information, if they hear me out, that they might see a lot more depth there, and even take considerations from what I expose them to with my honesty. And that's all I really have is my brutal honesty. And in time, hopefully, that honesty will open something up in communication. It's a different form of communication that I'm inviting people into. Actually, Stephen Jenkinson said it in best words that could say it, and I don't remember them exactly, so I can only paraphrase. But he said that he's not here to just spoon feed people with the constant saccharine drip, that people are used to and will take. And it makes me think of like the commercial chicken sitting under the feeder and not willing to move anywhere, and they can't move anyways because their legs will break and their hearts will give out, that kind of thing. So you're just used to that Uber Eats, Uber Cab, Uber everything, and therefore everything else atrophies, all potential, all the magic that we're born with, all our birthright, slowly drains out of the bucket with the little leak in the bottom, purposely put there. But we're distracted so much by all the fascination uh, that we don't notice that little leak that's been placed there. And maybe we don't even recognize the leak because it's outside of our field of vision and what we've accepted to be true and to be real. That's what I see going on right now. And it's why I have gotten frustrated in the past, very near past, and probably will in the very near future too. I try not to. But in all honesty, from the depth of my heart and soul, there is there are other realities and other reality to constantly unfold in front of us as we let go of old misconceptions, preconceptions, and evolve into, ideally, into a more real and less forged facsimile of that which is. And that's how I see what's going on. We have been slowly fed carrots uh, to keep us distracted uh, with little traumas, and then carrots, traumas, carrots, which shape us into who we've become. It's also scrambled us into, like it's like they've disconnected the valve to our energetic heart, the heart that is an organ of perception. They have kind of done like a heart bypass, in essence. So they've distracted us from even knowing that we have this deeper energy that I'm calling the heart, this deeper beingness that we're connected to, that we don't know about. So they know about it. So they do these carrots and traumas, carrot and trauma, to keep us distracted, and also develops our addiction to the carrots. And then the lifeline to the life force that is really us starts to atrophy, and we start to misidentify with other things. Hence, modern science becoming the god that people worship. And that's what I'm seeing right now is people are defending Big Pharma on such a level that they're willing to die for. They get instantly offended by someone. They take it personally if someone says anything against, criticizes Big Pharma, including doctors who think for themselves and go, hey, this is not right. I signed a Hippocratic oath, and I can't go through with this game because it's not right for me. And what happens to them? They speak out and they get chopped down to size by this villain that so many think is a savior. And how easy is it to, and why is it easy, do I see, for this mistaken identity, is because the villain that I'm calling the villain, quote unquote, my opinion, has always been 3 steps ahead of us. And even Goethe said both, if you follow this route, he said that back then, if you follow this route that Newton is taking you, you will become disconnected from nature. You'll become disconnected from that essence, that soul. And there's a term he used, and I had it in my mind, it was archetypal plant, but I was wrong. Or maybe it's 2 terms, but there's this essence of a plant, in his case, talking about nature. I'm going off on tangents here, and I hope I can find my way back. This is where I'm not so good yet. But anyway, so he was speaking about this, what I'll call the archetypal plant, and I think I have it wrong, it's a different term. But he said, for example, you have a bamboo forest. He said, really, it is one plant, but our perceptions in our reality, I'll call it a curse in a way. It causes confusion and misconceptions, is that we see in plural, we see in many, which might be in essence a one, if that makes sense. It took me a while to really grok this, but so we would go into a bamboo forest and see many bamboo plants, but it's a misconception. It is, which causes a misperception. And this is, in essence, where one of the areas where we get stuck. So he gave another example of a plant that it had a scientific name and it flowered once every 50, like some crazy amount of years. Let's just say 60 years. And little, I guess, clones of that plant, little cuttings of that plant were given to 60 different people, and they took them back to their homes all over the world. So 60 different of the same plant, in essence, all over the world, and this plant flowers once every 60 years or something. I could have that wrong, most likely. It could be 70 years. And wouldn't you know it, that plant flowered that one night or one day at 60 years or whatever, and everyone confirmed that it flowered exactly the same time everywhere in the world. How? Like, there's information here that people aren't getting. And you could get a scientist who rationalizes that right down to a dry old piece of over-chewed sugarcane. If anyone's chewed sugarcane, you get to that point where it's just, or sunflower seed, the shell. It just gets where you have this piece of dried stuff and you got to spit it out. We have been sold, in my opinion, we've been sold a bad rap. We have been masterfully, you could say to some degree, a false reality, a false floor, a false bottom, a false ceiling. But it works because of this fear, carrot, dynamic, and maybe that is the Stockholm syndrome thing. I don't exactly know, but also by taking us so far out from what we're familiar with within ourselves over lifetimes, humanity has been steered, in my opinion, into a large percentage of humanity en masse has been steered into a level of mistaken identity. So we are now fed a manufactured, almost what is real, but not quite. And this also goes into aspect of what Goethe said, that we would become disconnected from our natural connection with the planet, our wholeness, being part of the planet, and we would destroy ourselves. Now, how could he have known? Eh? And here we are, disconnected. We have no problem just tearing apart a mountain or something if it's got stuff we need. And I'm not cutting everything down. Humans are humans, and there are certain things we need to do. We need certain resources. I'm not making a mass judgment over things. I'm just talking about how it is so easy with a belief system, a manufactured belief system, a manufactured consent, to go off the rails. And then here's where you get, the Bill Gates of the world now saying, "Oh, well, you bad children, you have taken the planet to such a point where you have just almost destroyed it, and now we have to come in and take over." And this is part of the narrative now. Oh, well, maybe it's your bad habits that have gotten us to this place where we have this horrible V word. It's all your fault, and now we have to take over. We'll treat you like little children, and you have to obey. Well, wasn't it really correction here? My perceptions, wasn't it them who controlled the us of the past into all these bad habits? They're the ones making all the money from it, all the automobile plants and all the chemical plants and the food plants and the people making margarine telling us that was the best thing. I could go on and on about this topic, not even talking about what is at hand right now, but just talking about what has led to that place. But the essence of it that I was trying to get a point across is how we could be bought into a way of perceiving and a reality that we perceive, therefore, that has been customized exactly for us. It has to be, for it to work, it has to be a close replica of the real thing. And we've seen many examples of that, a forged passport, anything. It has to come very close to the real thing to be accepted most of the time, with a minute risk of being found out. That's what I believe we're in right now, is a manufactured reality that is carefully chiseled and carved out to be almost identical, so that and the word dumbed down has a derogatory sound, so I won't use that. But we've been conditioned, desensitized, and our belief systems modified to buy their story, their reality, which then gives them the opportunity to always, it's incomplete, so therefore they have to keep completing it constantly, because it's not really infinite, it's finite. It's but made to look like it's infinite. Hence where we are today, where we always look to them, the puppet masters, for, oh, what do we do? What do we take? You must have the answer. That is a scary place for us to be. And we're very vulnerable here. And this is, I think, where you get a lot of people using metaphors like lemmings running off a cliff and things, which of course trigger people defensively. So I'm not using those terms, but I do think them sometimes when I'm in a frustrated moment. But in truth, we have a birthright that could develop and unfold to where I can't even imagine what we can be potentially and what we have been shut off from. But just take an example of using the chicken metaphor. You have the more wild jungle fowl with all of its instincts and its beauty and ability to jump, fly up into a tree like chickens used to fly. Some species still do. But so you can have a chicken that is super intelligent and you could not catch it, for example. And a lot of predators could not catch it. And it's tuned in to its environment. And then you can have a chicken that's been dreamed up by agro business and Big Pharma hand in hand, and it doesn't even know what's coming at it if a predator came for it. It's not connected to nature anymore. It's never seen nature. It's been raised in a factory, been given caffeine all its life to keep it laying eggs or growing or whatever, like filled full of chemicals. That chicken does not know its chickenness. That chicken never will on purpose know its chickenness. They don't want that chickenness to somewhere in there, there's DNA, hypothetically speaking, that still remembers, but they don't want it to connect to that. And that's where I see us being. And I see us still having the potential. And I believe they see us as still having the potential, which is why I believe they are so scared at this moment, because they could lose it all if we wake up. And there's a few of us waking up, and there's a few of us thinking they're waking up, saying they're waking up, that aren't waking up. So I'm not saying that the term is the right term or if it's accurate, but there's stuff going on that's quite real, and there's stuff going on that's definitely fake. And I think that's on purpose as well, because that scrambles people too and confuses people. But I'm here anyways, and I recognize the divinity running through that which at first I considered like, why is this happening to me? And I was passing judgment on myself throughout the whole thing. Oh, I failed. Oh, I this. Oh, I that. Whatever. Until I realized fully that, no, this is a blessing. Something pushed me out of my position, possibly, perhaps, with a bit of compassion. The cruel to be kind thing, I guess, would be the best example, cliche. Now I'm starting to recognize the divinity at work within me. And I've been kind of thrown into, not really fully planned, a little piece of land that's not much, but it is my own. I actually own it. I can't believe that. I don't have a house, but at least I'm not in a position where I have a house and a massive mortgage where I'm still a puppet at the beck and call of whatever rules they throw at me. So I've got a little bit of independence, kind of, sort of. Me and the mosquitoes. But I'm recognizing now, I'm meant to be submerged in a more natural environment. And I'm meant to have a sense that I've got to fend for myself. I think that ingredient is really important. Because I think what the journey is for each one of us that either chooses or doesn't choose, is chosen for them, whatever. The healing journey, it is to each find our way out of this I get the term glitch in the program that's from the Matrix, but it's not out of the glitch in the program, it's out of the program. And sometimes seeing a glitch, recognizing a glitch, is the first step to getting out of the program, knowing that there is a program and something to get out of. And just like I think an addict getting off of a drug, it is a very difficult thing, and one gets drawn back into it during that first stage of the process of getting off of the nipple of the controllers. And it has all the same dynamics, even death and near-death experiences and so on, all the phases that you go through, because you are dying to that which you believed. And I think everyone that would be going through this kind of a process, although they'd each have their own individual ways this unfolds, the similarities will be that we will all face judgment, fear of judgment, a whole range of things that feel like we are failing and toppling and so on. But once we question things, as I found, that these things are not true. These are judgments that I have placed on myself. And what do they serve to do? Nothing but try and cement me back into that old mold. And I'm not having it. So I'm recognizing this sacred place that I'm in, even though, for example, tomorrow is the day, 25th, where I'm supposed to go to where our trailer is, which we put $10,000 on, and give a check for the remaining 30,000, which I had this couple of weeks, a week and a half grace period, hoping that in that time we could find someone that will give us financing, so that then in turn, because we have just enough if we have to tomorrow to have a check done, and then we'll have nothing left. So that means nothing, no money left to have a well dug, and no money left to have at least one water hydrant pump, as I used to call them, a water pump kind of thing. But basically a basic rudimentary setup to go with the well, a pump inside, so we can retrieve water when we need to. We won't be able to do that, and we won't be able to have a septic and flush toilets and everything that comes with that. So seems like a difficult crossroads at this point, and I'm recognizing that that's my perceptions. And so the human part of me kind of flails a bit and goes, well, what the fuck? Like, this is a big deal. I am at a point where I'm going to get the trailer for us to live in, but if we don't get the financing, and tomorrow is the final day, so it can get a bit scary if I dwell on it. That's how I felt when I got up this morning, was, oh God. So in essence, it seems that today is my last chance to find out. It's like a banking day, Monday, before tomorrow, Tuesday, 25th, that I have to hand over a check, and therefore give up on my hope that I would get some financing, which then would allow us to spend that money which we have left not on the trailer and on the well and the septic, which would give us more of a sense of completion. And I feel that we could actually weather a winter and do whatever we need to do to make ends meet and to thrive, to the point where I can make us a little house or something. Who knows which way it's going to go after that. I have to just trust the creative process. And that's difficult when there's this billboard up in front of me saying, watch out, you're in a danger zone now. Tomorrow's the last, or today's the last day. Tomorrow you got to whatever. My challenge is to acknowledge the reality of the physical, that which we call reality at work, and all the trappings and hurdles I have to go through and jump over. And it's a very loud and big billboard that says, I'm the only one that exists. This is it. And I have to, my job has been to trust and put one foot on each reality. So I've got my one foot on that reality and working that and doing everything I can to find a way to get that financing through. But at the same time, not to put everything into that reality and believe and accept and know that there is another level, that one does not negate the other, that is on the more energetic, for lack of a better term, frequency level. And that is where my heart, as an organ of perception, perceives that kind of stuff. It perceives wholeness. It doesn't see separation. It doesn't see bits and pieces. So in a way, is more aligned with Goethe's science and reality perception. So that's my challenge today, is to do everything I need to do to secure any possibility of financing coming through, but also to do everything I can to not fear what if I don't get financing, I have to buy the trailer outright, and then I don't have enough for a well. I had that thought this morning, and it, be honest with you, scares the shit out of me. It makes all my fear come up. I get triggered. It is not easy having a cistern of water. Right now it's easy because it's summer. But winter comes, to have water, I've got to have a whole bunch of things set up. I've got to find a way to be able to bring water in, or even from snow, melting it. Nonetheless, I've got to find a way to insulate a bunch of these containers. So I'd have to buy a bunch of them. I'd have to insulate them and set up a way that I can have running water and also refill it constantly from somewhere. And then that begs the question, what source am I going to get my water from? There's somewhere in Bancroft where you can fill up, but it's chlorinated water. So I'm right back to that disgusting mess. And, I've come this far to have something deaden my senses and put chemicals into me. And that's just jumping on these tangents. That's an aspect of what I'm trying to do here, is to get all this, let's just say that this one forged reality that's made to seem like it's the real thing. Let's just say, for the sake of imagination here, just follow me on this, that let's see, how can I put this? Okay, so if I choose as an experiment, which I have chosen, to try and disconnect from a lot of these things that I identify as being that which makes me hooked into the system. And this is not, it's not like I believe I can get right out of it. Obviously, I have a truck, I have to fuel the truck, there's a variety of things, but I'm just trying to minimize stuff at least coming through my body, like chlorinated water. Just take advantage of, I'm in this natural environment, I'm breathing the terpenes, I'm even ingesting the mosquitoes. I'm becoming one as much as I can with this environment. For the purpose, one of the purposes is to get into the right frequency alignment with nature. And that also means dumping sandbags. If you go into the metaphor of the hot air balloon, well, I need to go higher, so I want to dump a few sandbags. So identify the sandbags that I can dump from that which I need. So, I may feel, from one perspective, I may feel like I am without many things, and I am without many things. I mean, everyone's without many things. It's just, are they the things you want or don't want? So I'm without a lot of what we consider luxuries, and I'm also without a lot of desires that many other people have. But I'm also with a lot of desires for certain things that I might consider a luxury, and those I deal with each day, and ideally intend to progress further into this world as my heart identifies which way to go. So I'm really putting a reliance on a more heart-based, frequency level way of perceiving rather than the more concrete scientific kind of thing we've been trained into. And many people will go, "Wow, that's fucked up." Like you're what? You're just putting everything into faith, this invisible realm you just conjured up that we don't even believe is real. And I think that's how a lot of people see a lot of people and how these differences come up. But this is a very real frequency, for lack of a better term. There are many levels and layers and frequencies and whatever words you want to use to this reality that we don't perceive or don't have the awareness of, but that we could over time learn to perceive. And I don't mean through science in the way we know it, although can be incorporated. I mean, we've got telescopes, that comes from science, but they have their limited functions nonetheless. I remember reading, speaking of science and telescopes and things, it made me think of microscopes, and a bunch of scientists, sort of more microbiology kind of level scientists, went and did ayahuasca in the rainforest for the sole purpose of each one in their specialty, and they were real specialists, had their knowledge, and they wanted just to see what would they experience. And a lot of them experienced the science that they had been investigating, and quite often got as far as what they knew in experiential sense, journeying through these things, but also got other information that took them further, and they were baffled, like, wow, how is this possible? So that's a good example. And I don't have any footnotes. I'm not a scientist myself. It's not how my brain works. I don't spend my life writing down all these notes, although I have written notes at times. And even if I did that, they get lost, especially at this point where everything's in boxes. I couldn't access anything anyways. So I'm an artist. I work more based on I trust my feelings when I can, and that's how I've always perceived. It's always how I've worked. I see patterns, shifts, quite often like a movement or a stopping of a movement catches my eye. Raven always marvels over how I can see a hair or a fluff or a whisker in almost anything, like in food. I'll be like, oh, and lo and behold, it was there. So I perceive things that other people can't perceive, and it's nothing mystical, although it might be mystical to some, or some people just think I'm speaking out of my ass. Who knows? I'm speaking my truth, and that's part of what I'm doing here, is getting across so when the camera's upside down and you see things all crazy, what I'm getting across is I didn't clean that piece out to hide it from you. I am giving you everything as it happens. So that's the point. And granted, those things will stop happening soon because I'll get a little bit better and I'll catch those things. So it's not ongoingly that you have to put up with those little glitches, but I find them important to leave in for the message that's riding through the messages, the lower level messages, and then the message that rides through it. If over time, I'm hoping that will be picked up on more and more. Some people will pick up on it right away. And then there's also the message that I don't know, that I'm learning as I go, and maybe by being so honest with you and not hiding, so transparent, that my hopes are that this will start to come through. Anyway, so it's an experiment. We'll find out. But anyway, so this is how I've gotten to where I've gotten in my way of perceiving things is because of a lifetime of perceiving and thinking and questioning and wondering and imagining and creating and everything that's in my world, and fearing certain things, but then going into them and questioning them, I guess, in a different way than a lot of people question things. My mother always said to me, "Why do you have to question things?" And she was really honest. Like, why do you have to question things so much? I said, Mom, I don't buy the world I'm being fed. And I feel like something's not quite right. And I've always wanted to question things. I remember a kid, three brothers, the Donnellys, and they're raised by their dad, single parent family, around the time that, more or less the age, I think they were a bit younger than me, but the youngest one, so the biggest age difference, he used to always say to me, he'd ask me a question and I'd answer him and he'd go, but why? I'd give him an answer and then he'd go, but why? And I'd go, oh my God, but why? And at the time, it was frustrating. I'm like, oh my God, this kid is like, it must be his age. He just keeps saying, but why? With nothing else to it. And then he became some scientist, computer scientist, I can't remember what, but something pretty high level brain power. And he was honestly asking, but why? He wanted to know deeper things that I wasn't at that level to even question. So I just thought he was off his rocker. And now I'm getting to experience that from the other side. Now people may think I'm off my rocker when I ask, but why? But it's a truthful, honest question. And, but why? I have a lot of but whys. Also to myself, and I try my best to go into those places, and quite often they can be foreboding because they're dark, shadowy corners and tunnels that go right back to my childhood programming of stay out of there. And I'm recognizing now that that's exactly where I'm being pushed into, whether I like it or not. And at first, it was very easy. I could buy into the belief that what it seemed like, that I was failing and everything was being done to me, sort of dynamic. So it was like a big train wreck. And I will, on a metaphorical level, I will agree, I perceive what I went through as a crash landing, I would say would be better. There was definitely a point for quite a while where, last couple of years, especially the last year, had that element of controls are not quite functioning. Oh, we're going into a nosedive. Okay, oh, we're recovered a bit. Okay, things are getting better. There's a female woodpecker. But anyways, all my conditioning started bringing up fears throughout my past, and that I had failed. I had done it. I'd finally done the horrible thing of failing. All of everything. So afraid of failing, and I had felt like I was succeeding for a certain point in my life up until, and I'm, as I go into these fears, I'm realizing they're conditioning. And as I purposely worked an exercise of trusting the process and opening myself to these little dark corners and questioning, is this to be feared?